Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Abeer's Book Reviews, and today I'll be reviewing this book, Public Opinion, a classic in political and social thought by Walter Lippmann. Now, a bit of context about who Walter Lippmann was. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, a reporter, and he's considered to be one of the fathers of modern journalism, and he also was, I'm pretty sure, who coined the term that you hear quite a lot nowadays is reporter or media objectivity. Now, talking about the book, it is an exercise in political social thought grouped with media studies. The main subject of the book, as the title suggests, public opinion. Now, what public opinion is, according to Walter Lippmann, is an individual's and a society's perception about something. Right, and he delves into how this public opinion is formed, and he says that these are formed by mental images, the so-called mental images that people have in their mind pertaining to a particular subject, and that these mental images are not formed through direct first-hand lived experiences, but rather that these mental images are based on media, they're based on society, they're based on culture, they're based on biases, they're based on stereotypes. And he says that since these very subjective perceptions of reality form the basis of public opinion, they end up being a great harm to a democratic society because they are so easily distorted, and oftentimes these perceptions are incomplete, right? Because just logistically speaking, it's not always possible for people to know every single side of every single story. And so this lack of completeness, coupled with the easy malleability, leads to, in Walter Lippmann's opinion, a very shaky foundation on which a democracy can stand. And he says that this is because most citizens of a democracy lack both the time, interest, and expertise, and also mental rigor to analyze every single thing in detail. So they just rely on these retellings and these stories, which again are very easy to manipulate. Now, this book has been described as being quite elitist because it makes a lot of claims that today we would not, as a society, get behind. One of the ones being that people in a democracy are pretty much like a herd, and that they need to have like a chaperone. You need people are not that mentally tenacious that they can figure everything out on their own, and that instead a society writ large requires a sort of a guiding, independent, objective, propaganda-free media outlet, or several of these outlets. And it's a very technocratic solution, which people say that it alienates the masses of a democracy, right? The heart of a democracy. But there are a lot of arguments against that as well. I'll not go into too much detail because it is quite an extensive book, and but just keeping it very high level, it then also talks about propaganda, which is something which that has been in the zeitgeist since pretty much World War I, because of it's a very powerful thing to control. One party that controls the propaganda can basically control the entire soul of a democracy. And then Walter Lippmann talks about again how the mental images abstract into public opinion, and how that public opinion abstracts into propaganda. And he talks about a bunch of other things related to how a public's perception about certain topics is framed, but that would pretty much be the high-level overview of this book. It's very hard to condense it down into a sort of concise review, because there are a lot of offshoots into which you can venture when talking about the book and all the things that it ventures into. But just very high level. It's about people's perception of things and how they're misguided, biased, not effective, and lead to a not great democratic foundation, and how these can be exploited, and the need for the public to be herded by an independent, objective source. Talking about the writing style, it is not an easy read because there's just something that people back in the day like do, which I sort of call ambiguous writing. It's not ambiguous per se, like obviously people back then understood it pretty clearly, but coming from, where language and grammar and sentence structure has changed so much and has been simplified down a lot, reading a book like Public Opinion, it can be quite challenging, but once you do get your hand onto the book, and you get a pretty good idea of the way the author talks about stuff, it's an amazing read, pretty much for anyone. I said it's media studies, but I think in today's day and age, everyone needs to have a little bit of media literacy, quote unquote. But yeah, it's a pretty good book. It tells you a lot about society. And once you do understand the entire gist of the book and you try to apply some of the fundamental principles into your everyday life, you will end up seeing how much of your own public opinion and mental image is shaped by distorted, contorted views and facts, and how almost every single media outlet in the world nowadays is playing into that and propagandizing everything, and how, even though it sounds quite elitist, how you do lack the mental rigor to correctly assess all of these. And I realized that after reading the book as well, that a lot of the times when talking about certain news stories or whatever, people, including myself, do not have the mental rigor to actually do the analysis and figure out the propaganda that we are being fed, basically. Great book, definitely recommend it for everyone. It's not a very big read, pretty short, just I think it's just over 200 pages, give or take like 10 or 20 pages. But that is pretty much it for Public Opinion by Walter Lippmann. Here it is once again. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button. If you're new and haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel to keep receiving more videos like this one. I've been Abeer Rao, and thanks for watching.